it comes down to your personal choice. It's there, it's available, it's professional. Greetings and salutations, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fluency podcast. I'm Liam.
And I'm Rams, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is quite the intro. I love the enthusiasm, man. You
Yeah.
must have woken up on the right side of the bed.
Nothing to do
Starting,
with the bed. I'm always on the left anyway. But I I just did a workout, so I am literally pumped up, which is another great phrasal verb that you can use to talk about being enthusiastic. So I'm enthusiastic for our topic today, though, Ramps. We're talking about the power of language, which is an obvious topic when you are language coaches like us. But I think there's another level that we can add to it, which is language is very important in terms of personal development. What do you think?
yeah, man. I think there's a lot we can uncover in today's conversation. Power of language. Oof, where to begin? Man, maybe we could start from our own personal experiences because you and I certainly are benefactors of the power of language. We've benefited from it and we continue to.
One of the things that comes up often when I'm working with people, my first session with someone is always a discovery session. So we go through introductions, getting to know each other. What are your goals? What are your challenges? What are your interests? Putting a plan together. Okay, pretty standard stuff for a first hour with the client. But the thing that always comes up when I'm talking to people about their challenges is they're always very negative about their ability for a particular skill in English. So, for example, they might say straight away, my English isn't very good, immediately setting themselves up with negativity, right? I'm like, well, if you can put that sentence together, your English is better than you think it is, right?
That's a nice one.
If you can say
Yeah.
that sentence, your English is good enough to have a conversation. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I usually start with from session one is stop that. Basically, stop saying that. Or if you say my English isn't very good, just add the word yet on the end. Because the thing about doing that is that you are telling your brain that it's something that you're working on and you're making progress with. Okay, you're not where you want to be at the moment, but it's a work in progress. And if you are able to adapt that kind of mentality and mindset to what you're doing, your brain will follow suit. You don't let your brain control you, you control your brain. When you're using language to talk about yourself, your skills, your mindset, your confidence, whatever it is, using language in that way, it can be very powerful just to shift into a new way of learning something.
Yeah. I think I'm probably gonna start using that one with my clients. The approach that I usually take when they say that, because that's a very common thing. I just simply remind them like, oh, just jokingly, I'm like, oh, really? Wow, man. Like, I'm so surprised. Who would have thought that an individual would probably be the harshest critic? And it usually boils
God,
out
who'd have
into
thought?
laughter.
Yeah.
So it's a very common thing, right? We generally are more critical of ourselves than anyone else. So when clients come with me to with that, the immediate thing that I do is remind them that, well, that's a very normal human thing to do, to
Mhm.
always be hard on yourself more than anyone else. It usually gets them to laugh because I often say it in a very sarcastic kind of manner, clearly over the top, clearly joking. I'm like, oh my God.
Sarcastic? No, really?
Exactly. And it's nice. I use it as a way as well to sort of break the ice with the clients, which is quite nice. But I like this one as well.
It
So I
comes
like
down to
yours.
intention, doesn't it? Whatever that's also something that we cover with clients is what's your intention? What do you want to get out of this course? What's your goal? And if your intention is to use these sessions to improve your English so you can be a better professional, so you can speak more in meetings, for example, you can still use the yet idea.
Yeah.
I don't understand everything in the meetings yet, right?
Exactly.
Using these tweaks to your language. A tweak is like a small adjustment, a small change. It's a way of reprogramming the negative things, whether that's what you're there for or not.
I like it because it's simple to understand.
There's
And I think it reinforces what you said, it reinforces that, okay, this is exactly why I'm here to get better at this thing. So I like
yeah,
it. I'm gonna,
there's another
cool.
one that I can think of, which comes from, I believe it comes from Tony Robbins, but I've heard many different coaches using it. But we use the phrase "I have to" a lot. Oh, I have to
Mhm.
pick up the kids from school. I have
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
this product finished by the end of the week. I have to
Mhm.
record a podcast. And actually, the implication of using "have to" is that
An obligation,
it's an
yeah.
obligation, right? So if you
Lack of
shift,
choice.
exactly. So if you shift have to get, completely changes the intention of what you're doing. I get to pick up the kids from school. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
You're more
I,
excited. Yeah.
exactly. It's an
It,
opportunity. It's not an
yeah.
obligation, right?
Have to is generally not said in a very excited tone. Like I
Yeah.
have to study for my driver's license test because
Hmm. Yeah,
I
but
can no longer
come on,
use my
buddy. I
license.
think we both know you have to get your driving license. It is an obligation at this point. You
Wait,
can't
wait.
you can't skip around it.
Yeah, God, man, it's just I have to.
Yeah.
I have to. You see, look at how my demeanor changed. I was laughing and smiling. Yeah, I have to. It
Yeah.
became serious. It became a
But
moment of
that's
realization of
because
the work and the effort that needs to go into it.
you, but you've gone past the point of no return with this. It has become an obligation because in all things of your life, it's going to make a big difference.
I like that. You've come to the point of no return.
Hmm.
Okay. So I have two questions. Firstly,
It's not even obligation now, it's necessity, which changes it completely.
I think you've unraveled and packed three things now that I'd like to ask you about.
Right, go ahead.
One, the first one is the expression that you used, okay, which was it's gone beyond the point of no return. Yes. The second thing that you mentioned was it is now necessity, not even an obligation. It's
Hmm.
no longer a necessity, it's an obligation. That's the second question I have for you. What's the difference between necessity and obligation? And the third question is that how does this tie into the power of language?
All right, so it's gone beyond the point of no return. The point of no return is when you have taken action to the point where you've gone further enough that you're closer to the end goal than you are to this
Just leaving
restarting.
it,
Yes,
giving up. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So
So
the
for
you
example,
if you would think about it in terms of traveling, if you were traveling from, I don't know, Milan to Rome, it's a 5 hour drive, and you got 3 hours into the drive, and something happens. At that point, you're actually closer to your destination than you are to where you started from. You're closer to Rome than you are to Milan. And therefore, you might
you
as
have
well
reached the
just
point.
continue your journey to your end destination, right?
Yeah, yeah. You've reached the point of no return.
It's
I
like
think.
getting through Wednesday on an average working week. If you can get through Wednesday, that's it. It's downhill to the weekend. So
You
we
got to
call
the point of no return. Yeah.
yeah. So Wednesday is affectionately called Hump Day in England. Have you come across that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Hump
Yeah.
Day
Hump day.
because it's the top of the hill of the working week. Once you get over Wednesday, you get over the hump, and then it's literally down the other side of the hill.
Question number two, just to remind you, was the difference between a necessity and an obligation. This was tied to, of course, the expression you used before to have gone beyond the point of no return.
What are your thoughts about this? Because I'm trying to think of an explanation without using have to, but that was the origin of the conversation. So I'd be interested to hear what
Well,
you think.
an obligation is something that is a rule which usually implies that it is being enforced by an external party, right? You can have also self-imposed obligations that you make towards yourself, all right? But an obligation in the general sense is something that is a rule that needs to be adhered to and usually by a third party. A necessity is a need,
Right.
something that you can no longer or cannot live without. Examples of necessities are, the four Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those examples of necessities. So that's the difference between the two. It's a thin line,
Right.
especially when you're looking at a legal system. Some laws appear to be more necessities and not. For example, you could argue that a need for a driver's license is both an obligation and a necessity because the law obligates you to have a driver's license to
Hmm.
drive.
Yep.
And for you personally, you have the necessity to know how to drive in order to be able to even take the test and so on.
And what
Yeah.
we were saying earlier is it's a need for your life. Living in Italy, you need
Yeah.
to be able to drive because with
I mean,
so
I would say
public
living
transport
in a
isn't
small
bad,
town.
but yeah, living in a small town,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
I,
a
I would
necessity.
I would say living in a small town in most parts of Europe. I think the overground train, with an exception of maybe 4 or 5 countries in the world, everywhere in the world, overground trains are notorious for being unreliable,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So that's the difference between obligation and
Nicely,
need.
nicely said. I like the way you put that.
We still have one
Yeah.
more question,
Right.
man. So
Okay.
one more,
Yes.
one more.
So, final
Which
question.
mhm.
How
Do you remember?
does the difference between have to and get to relate to the power of language? Yes.
Nice, nice one. That one you remembered. It was probably your favorite question. Was it like, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. It was very much on topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think in terms of have to and get to, it's seeing life as a an opportunity. It's seeing things as challenges and not problems. It's about how you view the world. Here's another example of a phrase that means pretty much the same thing, but it shows how you perceive yourself and what happens in the world. So, are you a problem solver or are you solution oriented? A
Hmm.
problem solver looks for problems to solve. Okay. So they're always looking for things that aren't working, that are negative,
Hmm.
right? A solution
Power of
oriented
language.
person is able to deal with problems and challenges as they happen, but they don't go looking for them, but they're able to offer solutions when things happen,
And that is the power of language.
right?
An example of power of language. I had a client a few years ago. Long story short, she had a great job, great potential growth in the career,
Mm-hmm.
and was in a great situation generally in her life. But she hadn't left Italy, and her dream was to visit London. Now that's not a very strange dream to have, but it's a dream that you generally associate with people who live further away from London. For someone who is in Europe to dream to go to London, which is only an hour and a half away by plane from Italy, appears to be quite small as a dream. But her dream was linked to language, power of language.
Yeah, she wanted to go to London and speak English, right?
Reason why she never left Italy, yes, was that she was too terrified of having to speak to anybody in English. And London became the dream because she figured if she can speak to native speakers in English, understand them, and be understood by them, everyone else would be able to understand. And that's what the role of London was really that. It
Mm.
was her, it was going to be, and it ended up being her measuring stick of how well she's able to communicate in English. So after about 18 months of at least 3 hours a week of English guided practice, so coming to us and having conversations
Hmm.
and of course the self study that she did. After about 18 months, she moved from like a A2, maybe
Pre-intermediate.
A2.5, pre intermediate, to pretty much uh, intermediate, bordering on upper intermediate.
Okay. So like a
She
level and a bit.
a level and a bit, yeah.
Mm.
Long
Yeah.
story short, the success was after 18 months of attending the course. One, I felt like I met her for the first time after 1 year
Hmm.
because she was now able to express herself in English, and I was able to see parts of herself that were otherwise unseen before because of limited vocabulary. So
Right.
that was the first milestone. Um, And then the second milestone is that she, at 18th month, in month number 18th, to celebrate her success, her growth, because she not only could hear it, but she felt it.
Right.
That's the most important. This is the, I mean, when I say the power of language, she felt more empowered. She felt more confident. She felt more sure of herself, not just in English, but we saw it in other areas of her life as well. She's the epitome of the power of language. And yeah, she ended up 18 months later visiting London for the first time in her life with some friends. And she's never looked back ever since. I
Mm.
met her as a shy, very to herself kind of person. Even during sessions, we suggested that she does group sessions to
Hmm.
combat that. You know, she did both individual and in group. She'd
Right.
have the individual for special attention, and she'd have group for her to, you know, get rid of the stage fright, be around other people that don't know her. This particular company that I worked with at the time, the groups were not fixed. So you were meeting different people all the time, which was
Okay.
perfect for someone like her, for her,
Yeah, yeah.
how we knew her as a personality. So yeah, the power of language in her case, just, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying a transformation because that would be a bit of, you know, that would be
Oh,
hyperbolic
I got a good phrase for you.
way of
I got a
speaking.
good phrase for what happened. It was she came out of her shell.
Absolutely. So yeah, when I think power of language, I think of that, and how language with the X clients have changed not only their careers, their prospective careers, or their potential career moves,
Hmm.
help them to have more options, but it also just helped them as people.
Hmm.
I got to know them better as people, and I think in some ways, a lot of them really great people.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
So
I've also had a similar experience with someone who started off around about the same level, very introverted, quiet, very unsure of their English. And just through the process of working together and creating a safe space to speak, their whole person changed. It's, I think,
you see them for who they really are.
exactly. I
Like the
was about
first
to
time
say
I
the
meet a
same
client,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
The first
about,
time we meet the clients, we have a sense of who they are.
mhm,
But it's over time that as the ability to use the language increases,
mm.
as they become better and better communicators in the language.
I
Power of
can
language,
I
man.
speak from my
You
own personal
understand them more.
experience. One of the things that I've struggled with moving countries is I'm still unable to be myself completely in another language.
Language, yeah.
And
That one.
right,
Oof,
and that's the thing,
yeah.
is that I'm very confident in the person that I am in my own language. Right, I know who I am. I'm 44 years old. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. I know how to articulate myself in any situation, right? Whether that be using diplomacy or persuasion or avoiding an argument, whatever it is, or starting an argument, I know what to say in any given situation in my own language. But I struggle to
I
even
think,
answer basic questions from strangers in Italian. The,
yeah,
the thing is about that is being unsure of myself, in putting myself in this challenging situation, being unsure of myself in Italian, it has an effect on my everyday person, my everyday being. If you're not confident in one thing, that kind of creeps into the other side of your life as well. So then you start doubting yourself because the voice in your head is the one that is native to you. So you start listening to that voice long enough and the language that it uses, and it's very rarely complimentary. We're going full circle back to what we started off with your
the
tip.
negative self speak, yeah.
Yeah, self-doubt, self-deprecation, all of these negative trains of thought going through your mind because you're not good at the other language, and it starts to affect your normal life. So I can completely relate to how you were telling us about your client finding this strength within herself to learn English, become better at it, and then go through the challenging process of going to London and speaking with native speakers completely changed her as a person. It was like a weight has been lifted from her, and she was able to be herself in any language that she chose to speak in any situation. And it's working towards that is a process, and it takes time and effort and consistency. It's not easy,
Not at all.
unfortunately. Yeah, but
No, not at
but
all.
it's so much better when you do put in the time and effort. And not just with language, but with anything that is difficult, anything that puts you outside of your comfort zone. If you keep pushing through to get to your goal or your destination for that particular journey, the sense of achievement that you get at the end of it is greater than anything else, which is why you persevere.
Spot on. I
Mm.
don't think there's anything else I could add. What you said, a phrase, to be yourself in that language.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much comfort in being yourself in a different language. And I think our listeners and viewers, people who are watching and listening, at the very least, probably speak two languages because we are making this for second language speakers.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's
That's
that's a good
why I
point to
said,
say. Please feel free to share your stories or
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
anything that happened to you on your journey in the comments below. That would be greatly appreciated. We'd love to hear more about what you've been through and how you've gotten to the other side of of that challenge. Or if you're
Yeah.
still working on it, leave a comment. Let us know what you're going through, and we will reply with any help that we can.
I think it's something that unfortunately sometimes we know this with working within the industry that at times it's something that's overlooked
Mm.
by businesses. It's the ability for someone to be comfortable enough to speak in a meeting, that being yourself in that language, in a different language, is important because it allows you to express yourself without holding back or the fear of saying the wrong thing. I've had several clients
Mm.
who
Yeah.
said to me, Rams, I had such a great idea, but it's not that I didn't say it. It's what I didn't say it in the manner that resonated with the people in the room. And I
Right.
think you touched on that early on when you're speaking about your own experience with Italian. You know, you're able to speak Italian, you are now seeking to communicate. And I see a clear difference between speaking and communicate, right?
Yeah.
Speaking is simply having the ability to understand that the words are that are said to you and that you are able to say words in that language to someone else. Communication is where we're not just looking at the words. In my view, okay, don't I'm not saying this is a fact. I'm saying the way I see communication and speaking.
Mm.
Communication is not just about saying the right words in terms of grammar, pronunciation, accuracy, but it's saying something in the manner that you wish your counterparty to understand it. So that's delivering bad news in a manner that is acceptable to the person who's on the receiving end of the bad
Mm.
news. And yeah, this is where you're heading towards in your Italian. You've got the spoken, and now you're slowly working into communicating because this is where you being yourself comes into being yourself in that language. You have a way, as you said, I have a way of being diplomatic in English, which not only is sort of fits what is socially correct in relation to the culture of English, but what also fits with your own personal beliefs. This is yourself, right?
I think what you're saying is absolutely true. And it extends the idea of the power of the language that you're using.
Yeah.
It's very much communication is based on choosing your words, choosing your phrases, and choosing your delivery of those words and phrases.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of the words and phrases specifically, the reason why we're having these conversations is because they have a lower level of formality than you would have in maybe a business meeting or something, because we're friends and colleagues, but we also have a level of professionalism to what we're talking about, which means that all of the language that we're using is still appropriate for the workplace. And I think that is something to consider when re-listening to these podcasts, because once is never enough, of course. And picking up on the language and the phrases, and then thinking about how you're going to use those within the work situations that you have. Are you having a conversation over lunch with a client, or are you in a business meeting and need something more? Okay, can I use gone beyond the point of no return in a business meeting? Yes, absolutely. Can I use to get worked up in a business meeting? Possibly. Yeah, it
Yeah, this
depends.
is where this is
Are you the type of person that when you can see someone is getting angry, aggressive, upset, that you're going to point it out? Or are you not going to communicate that with the other person and just try to continue without addressing concerns? If you're the type of
concerns.
person who's going to be more direct, say, I can see you're getting worked up right now. But if you're not, you might try and use different type of language to steer the direction of the conversation to another point. So it comes down to your personal choice. It's there, it's available, it's professional, but it comes down to the individual at the same time.
I feel like there's so much to this topic that we can develop a little bit more on. I feel like we
Absolutely.
can have a part two.
Yeah. I mean,
Of
I think there should be a part two. I've still got a couple more ideas from the personal development realm that we could share on this. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? Do you think this is a subject that needs a part two? Maybe we should revisit this in season two. Let us know your thoughts, and we can always come back to this conversation at another time. But unfortunately for today, I think we're going to have to wrap up there. It's been always educational, Ramps. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liam. Always a pleasure, man. It's educational, it's entertaining. I'd happily do this for 2 hours, 4, 5, 6.
One day, buddy, one day.
All right. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, my
Uh,
friend. And thank you very much for listening. We will see you and you will hear us next time. Take care.